There are moments in life when you can no longer ignore that truth that silently haunts you. It's not that you lack something, it's that you forgot who dwells within you. Most people aren't empty, they are disconnected. They search for strength as if they don't have it. They beg for direction as if they are lost, and they drag themselves through life as if God were far away. But the truth is, He has always been there. Inside, not outside. Here, not in some future sign. And everything changes the day you remember. The day you stop searching for power and start walking as if you already have it. That day could be today, but only if you choose to listen with every part of your being. You are not here by chance. You are here because the time has come to remember. We have been taught to act as if we are alone, to depend on the external, approval, plans, resources, logical steps, to believe that power lies somewhere else, in another time, in other hands. And without realizing it, we become people who wait. They wait for validation, they wait for signs, they wait to feel ready, but that waiting is the biggest trap. Because the truth is this, you were never alone, you just believed you were. The power that dwells within you is not something to be tested. It does not depend on your past, nor does it require rituals, ceremonies, or human approval. That power is not waiting for you to be perfect. It is waiting for you to stop looking outward and start remembering what has always been inside. When you finally recognize who lives within you, the way you walk through life changes forever. Not because the path becomes easy, but because now you know who walks with you. And that changes everything. We were taught to beg for strength as if we lacked it, to ask for wisdom as if it were far away, to search for signs as if God were hiding. But listen closely. The power that transforms is not begged for. It is remembered. You don't need to light a candle or wait to feel special. All you need is to align yourself, because when you are aligned with the divine, you don't ask for permission. You walk with certainty, you speak with intention, you live with purpose. You don't need to shout for heaven to hear you. Heaven is already inside you. This isn't about convincing God to help you. It's about convincing yourself that He never left. Power doesn't respond to drama or emotional impulses. It responds to clear decisions. You decide when to stop begging for certainty and start walking as a child of the infinite. You choose whether to keep waiting for another sign or to become the sign yourself. Do you know what happens when you stop acting like a victim? Your language changes, your body changes, your energy changes, because remembering who you are holds more power than any affirmation or ritual. And I'm not talking about repeating phrases like magic formulas. I'm talking about a real brave decision to live aligned, even if your hands tremble, even if your voice isn't steady. Because the sacred doesn't wait for you to be ready. It activates when you say, I am available. Available to listen, without resistance, to act without excuses, to stop negotiating with fear. And do you know what happens when you become truly available? Power ignites, not because you call it forth, but because you finally stopped blocking it. That is remembering. It's not a magic act, it's an act of coherence. It's living aligned between what you believe, what you feel, and how you walk. So stop asking for strength. Walk as if you already have it, because you do. You just need to stop forgetting. When you remember who lives within you, you no longer move from doubt, but from certainty. Your words no longer seek to impress, but to transform. Your energy stops scattering. It becomes direction, presence, purpose. The one who remembers who they are no longer wants attention. They want legacy. They see differently. They speak differently. They breathe differently. Not because they are now more spiritual, but because they are finally aligned. What once made them tremble now strengthens them. What once stopped them now propels them forward. Even silence no longer frightens, they honor it. They no longer need noise to feel alive. Closing their eyes is enough to hear what vibrates within. Before, criticism would knock them down. Today, they smile because they know something others have yet to remember. And their faith no longer depends on motivational phrases. Their faith is a state of consciousness. They no longer walk as someone missing something. They walk as someone who has already received. Not because everything is solved, but because they no longer seek outside what has always lived inside. And in that moment, the universe responds. Doors open. The right people appear. Direction is revealed, not by magic, but by coherence. Because the one who walks in alignment attracts everything that resonates with their essence. And the one who remembers what they carry inside becomes living proof that God has never left. An aligned person does not chase, they attract. They don't run after approval or despair over being seen, because they know that what is true shines on its own. And they live with intention, with direction, with a calm that unsettles those who still haven't remembered who they are. An aligned life doesn't shout, "Look at me," it whispers. "Remember who you are. You carry it inside too." That's what impacts the most. Not someone who speaks beautifully, but someone who lives so peacefully, so rooted, so steady in their walk, that without saying a word, they inspire you to reconnect with the eternal within you. This is what a life looks like that not only claims to believe in God, but walks as if He dwells inside. And that is not arrogance. That is reverence. It's remembering that every step carries intention, that every gaze has direction, because the one aligned with the source does not walk alone, and it shows. And then comes the big question. If the power inside you is so immense, why don't you always feel it? The answer is not that it has gone away. The truth is you've covered it up with doubts, with habits that don't nourish you, with voices that distract you. That power is still there. It's just that there's too much noise on top. Empty comparisons, soulless routines, people who don't believe in you, and you believing them. Shallow conversations, information without purpose, commitments that drain you. The channel isn't broken, it's saturated. You have filled your life with stimuli that pull you away from your essence. And then you wonder, why don't I feel clarity? But how will your inner voice speak if it's surrounded by so much external noise? How will God reveal Himself if you've buried Him under notifications, other people's opinions, and excuses? Confusion doesn't come from a lack of direction, but from an excess of distraction. It's not that peace isn't available, it's that you're too full of everything else. Expired relationships, inherited fears, opinions you never asked for but carried anyway. And there you go, carrying it all as if it were necessary, but it's not. Every unnecessary burden steals space from the power waiting to manifest. Sometimes you feel it. Something inside wants to come out, but it can't. The channel is busy. So stop asking why you don't feel direction. Ask yourself instead, what am I allowing to block my power? Because when you identify it and let it go, the divine within you will flow without obstacles. Not because it changed, but because you made space. God does not dwell in disorder. The divine voice doesn't interrupt, doesn't shout, doesn't impose. It waits. It waits for you to lower the volume of what doesn't build you up. Want clarity? Turn off the noise. Want direction? Close the doors that drain you. Because the sacred cannot reside in a mind overwhelmed by chaos. And I'm not just talking about the physical. I'm talking about your thoughts, your conversations, everything you allow into your inner atmosphere. Do a spiritual cleansing. Fast from noise, fast from urgency, fast from other people's judgment. There are doors that must close, not because you're selfish, but because you're ready for something higher. Take 10 minutes, no music, no social media, no talking, just you and your soul. Listen. not to your fear, not to the news. Listen to what is only revealed in silence, because that's where God speaks loudest. Not because he shouts, but because you turn down the noise. Guard your energy like the temple it is. Protect your time like something sacred. Be intentional with what you consume, with what you allow into your mind, with whom you allow near your spirit. If you're surrounded by environments that weaken you and habits that distract you, it's not God who is far away. It's your consciousness that's busy. Make space, emotional space, spiritual space, vibrational space, not for God to arrive, but for you to be able to perceive him. You don't need to feel invincible. You don't have to have everything clear. You just need to decide to walk even with fear, even with doubts, even with a trembling voice. Because the most powerful moment won't come when you're ready. It comes when you obey without being ready. Those who wait to feel strong, over time grow weaker. But those who walk while their legs shake, they are the ones the universe respects, because God doesn't wait for perfection. He waits for willingness. He only wants a first step in the middle of chaos, a silent decision that changes your atmosphere. And when you take that step, heaven aligns with you. The strength you thought was far away begins to be felt within, not because it appeared, but because you, by moving, made space for it. And do you know what happens when you walk in faith? Answers don't come beforehand. They come along the way. Peace doesn't appear by sitting and waiting. It reveals itself in movement, because every step you take, even if it seems insignificant, tells the universe, I am available. I am ready to be a channel. And in that moment, people, ideas, opportunities, resources, and energy begin to align, but only once you are already in motion. Sometimes we need to see a story that reminds us it really is possible, a story that doesn't start with success, but with darkness. Let me tell you the story of Elias. Elias grew up in a neighborhood forgotten by everyone. His house had more leaks than windows, and at night the silence was broken by screams, not from movies, but from his own home. His father was absent, his mother was present, but broken. From a young age, Elias learned that crying was useless, dreaming was dangerous, and asking for love often only brought rejection. At school, they called him the Invisible, not because he was shy, but because no one saw him. Every time he raised his hand, he wasn't chosen. Every time he spoke, he was interrupted. And every time he thought he was making progress, something knocked him down again. At 15, Elias was close to giving up. He thought, if life is going to be like this, maybe it's better not to continue. But that night, while everyone else was asleep, he locked himself in the bathroom with a flashlight and an old notebook, and for the first time in his life, he wrote down what he felt. He didn't know that this quiet act was about to change everything. There, in that dark space, he heard his own inner voice for the first time. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of abandonment, his own. And that voice didn't shout. It whispered, "You are not what they made you. You are what you decide to build from today." From that day forward, Elias made a decision. He couldn't change his environment, but he could start changing himself. Every morning he repeated, "I don't know how, but I'm going to get out of here." And he didn't say it arrogantly. He said it with real hunger. He started reading whatever he could find, listening to audios, studying while others slept. Not for grades, but for liberation. He didn't have a computer, so he wrote in old notebooks. He didn't have role models, so he became his own first example. At 19, he was rejected by a university. At 20, rejected again. And at 21, just as he was about to give up again, he heard that same voice, now louder. "I'm not preparing you to enter a system. I'm preparing you to transform it." And that's exactly what he did. Elias began giving free talks in parks. 3 people came, then 5, then 10. One day, he recorded a video with a borrowed phone. That video went Viral, not because of a good camera, but because he spoke from a real wound that had been healed. Today, Elias travels the world giving conferences. He's written books, he's built foundations, and most importantly, he has forgiven his past without forgetting it, because he knows his story wasn't a punishment. It was training, and when asked what moment changed everything, he doesn't say, "When I became famous." He says, "The day I wrote in the dark and didn't silence my voice." And this story is your mirror, because maybe you too had a childhood where you were ignored, invalidated, or marked by wounds that haven't healed yet. Maybe you too wrote in the dark. Maybe you too are one step away from giving up. But if you're hearing this, you still have fire inside. And you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to not silence your voice. The power that transforms doesn't impose itself. It ignites when you decide to listen. When you understand that life hasn't broken you, it has prepared you. And if Elias could build a legacy from pain, so can you. But start by honoring your story instead of running from it. Start by making space inside yourself, and then you'll see how that pain, when aligned, turns into purpose. And after everything lived, after the darkness, the silence, the first trembling step, that moment arrives, the moment when you no longer wait for signs, because you finally understand that you are the sign. You no longer beg God to give you what He planted in you from the very beginning. Now you know. Power is not begged for, it is activated. And it activates with one step, just one step, taken with a trembling voice, sweaty hands, and a heart beating like a war drum. Because every tremor faced with obedience connects you to the power that carries your name. And as you walk, something incredible happens. Fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. Because the one who walks with God doesn't stop, even if they still tremble. And that walk, that movement which doesn't depend on emotions but on alignment, transforms your relationship with the world. You no longer need to knock on doors desperately. Now, doors open with your very presence. You no longer chase opportunities. Opportunities begin to recognize you, because everything born from your alignment carries a different weight. Your words are no longer empty sounds. They are arrows with direction. Your ideas are no longer mere occurrences. They are downloads of purpose. Your steps, though silent, echo farther than any shout. You are no longer easily distracted by external noise, nor by opinions, nor by old doubts. Because now you decide from the spirit, not from the wound, from the mission, not the emotion. You begin to see what you once ignored, to perceive answers hidden in the everyday, not because life is magical, but because you are present. You are awake. You are tuned in. You no longer need to know step 10. Step 1 is enough, because the divine does not respond to control. It responds to obedience, and that power inside you doesn't manifest when you do everything perfectly. It manifests when you make space. And that space is not created by thoughts. It is created by movement, in the silent yes you say, in the action you take when no one applauds, in that invisible decision only God sees, but that activates heaven in your favor. Because when you're available, creation aligns with you, not by luck, by coherence. That's the difference between fighting to survive and walking with purpose. One exhausts you, the other expands you. Because when you walk aligned, you not only heal your life, you become a doorway for others to remember. Theirs. And then that figure appears. Not a perfect man, not a social media guru, but a real man, an aligned man, someone who no longer apologizes for his fire, who doesn't walk to be seen. But when he enters, the atmosphere changes, not for what he says, but for what he radiates. His energy doesn't impose, it's undeniable. He doesn't seek to speak louder. He speaks only when necessary, and when he does, his voice carries weight, direction, and truth. He doesn't run after what he desires. He walks in peace toward what is aligned. He doesn't react from the wound. He responds from the source. His decisions don't seek anyone's approval. They are born from silent discernment. And even when he doubts sometimes, he doesn't hide. He stops, breathes, remembers, and moves forward. His faith is not a show. It's a steady rhythm. His confidence isn't arrogance. It's reverence for what he carries inside. And you see him, and something inside you awakens, not because he wants to motivate you, but because without knowing it, he reminds you of what you also carry inside. That is the true strength of a man filled with God. He doesn't impose, he inspires. He doesn't act as if he knows everything. He acts as one who knows the source of all. That's why his step leaves a mark. His voice echoes. His life has direction. He's not more blessed than you. He's just more awake. Because now, in this very moment, a reality unfolds before you, one that admits no half measures or excuses. It's not just about moving forward, but doing so with the certainty that comes from within, from a connection that transcends the visible and the tangible. Walking with that conviction means understanding that every challenge is a disguised call, an invitation to grow, to awaken even stronger, to remember that there are no coincidences, only moments that arrive because you are ready for them. And here lies the key. Your transformation is not just for you. It is a beacon that, without you realizing it, lights the way for others. When you choose to rise and act with the authority of one who was sent, you begin to be a living example, a tangible proof that divine will and human strength can coexist in perfect harmony. That reality impacts beyond words, because coherence between what you say, feel, and do creates a resonance that pierces through silences and doubts. This path is not free of fear or uncertainty, but true courage is not the absence of fear. It is the conscious decision not to let it stop you, because the man or woman who walks with the certainty of their mission does not seek external approval, but rather stands firm in an inner truth that cannot be questioned. They are here to be the change, to be the living reflection of what others only long for. It's not about grand speeches or flamboyant demonstrations. It's about presence, persistence, a silent but steadfast love for what one represents. It is life itself becoming testimony, an irrefutable witness that what once seemed impossible is already happening. And if ever you doubt your ability to continue, remember, you are not alone. There are others who have already awakened and walk with firm steps, and others who are just beginning to discover their light. To you, who has felt this message deep within, I invite you to be part of this collective awakening, to add your voice through example, to build through action, to inspire without words. Because in that silent communion, in that determined walk, lies the greatest power. The power of a people who, without raising their voice, transform realities, who, without asking permission, redefine destinies. And if this message has touched your soul, if you found in it an echo, a spark, then you are already closer than you think to becoming that necessary presence. And in that process, without it being an obligation or just another task, know that by sharing, by being present, by making space for others, you help that flame grow, not because you must, but because in helping others remember, we also strengthen our own journey. Thus, without grand announcements or promises, an invisible network of awakened souls is created, sustaining a shared purpose. So keep moving forward, not because someone told you to, but because you feel it, because it is already inside you and only awaits your consistent response. Because in every firm step, in every act of coherence, in every moment you choose not to turn back, you give life to something that not only transforms your story, but echoes far beyond what you can imagine.